Hey guys, today we'll be introducing ourselves to copyrights. This is the first video as part of my playlist on copyrights, where we'll be delving into the copyright regime of India, the Indian Copyright Act of 1957, case laws on copyright, and many more. So without further ado, we'll look at the objective of copyright, which is to encourage authors, composers, and artists to create original works by rewarding them with exclusive rights for a limited period of time to reproduce the work for the benefit of the public. So keywords here are that the work must be original in nature, the authors are given exclusive rights over their work, and this is for a limited period of time. So what happens after this limited period of time? The work falls into the public domain and it is free for use by the public without permission from the author. Now we'll look at some characteristics of copyright which makes it a copyright and not any other form of IP. Firstly, copyright is a creation of the statute, which means that it is created by law, and here it is the Copyright Act of 1957 which creates copyright, and it is not a common law right in our country. And Section 16 of the Copyright Act states this. It says that no copyright except as provided in this act. This means that no other act, no other law, and it is not a common law right either. It is the Copyright Act of 1957 which provides copyright. Secondly, copyright consists of multiple rights. This means that it is a bundle of rights and it is not a single right. For example, you have the right to reproduce, right to translate, right to adapt, and many more when it comes to books. And so it is not just a single right, but multiple rights. Thirdly, the work must be original in order to be eligible for a copyright. This is governed by the doctrine of originality, which applies to copyrights. We will delve into this doctrine in depth in later videos, but for now, let's just understand that there must be a certain level of skill, effort, and a minimum degree of creativity for the work to be original, and if it's original, it is copyrightable. Lastly, copyrights exist in the expression and not the idea. This is governed by another doctrine, which is the idea-expression dichotomy. Before delving into it, for now, let's just understand that it is the expression that is protected and not the idea. For example, you might have seen many movies in which there's an evil stepmother and a daughter who's made to do chores around the house. Of course, this is the plot of the most famous movie, Cinderella, but it's not necessary that only Cinderella has these kind of characters or this kind of dynamic between the characters, but you won't be violating anybody's copyright if you use another evil stepmother and a pretty daughter in your movie or book. It's just that other elements have to be different. They cannot all be the same. The expression has to differ. The idea can be the same. Nextly, we must note that copyrights are territorial. This means that each country has its own law for copyright, as we do in India with the Copyright Act of 1957. And there is no complete international law on copyright currently, while international agreements such as TRIPS do have some provisions on copyright. There is no comprehensive law on copyright at the international level, and so each country sets forth its own substantive and procedural laws on the protection and use of works in their respective jurisdictions. Now that we know that India has its own jurisdictional copyright law, we'll look at the development of copyright law in India, starting with the Indian Copyright Act of 1847. This was enacted during the British India regime, and it was passed by the Governor General of India and Council on 15th December 1947, but its implementation is not really recorded in history, and the first effective Copyright Act was passed in 1914, and it was a modified version of the British Copyright Act of 1911. It was a pretty small act, and it contained only 15 sections in one schedule. And finally, the most comprehensive law of copyright was enacted by the Indian Parliament in 1957. This is the effective copyright law in India, and we follow this law currently. We'll look into two provisions of the Copyright Act which are pretty introductory. First, Section 13 of the Copyright Act, which defines works in which copyright subsists. So what kind of works are eligible for copyright? These are original literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works. These are often abbreviated as LDMA, standing for literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic. Secondly, cinematograph films, and thirdly, sound recordings. The conditions are that the work must be created by an Indian citizen, or it must be first published in India unless international agreements apply. And copyright subsists only if these kind of works are given or produced for copyright, and only if other conditions in the act are fulfilled as well. Secondly, we have Section 14 of the Copyright Act, which defines the meaning of copyright. So, what does it mean to have a copyright over a work? So, it means that you have the exclusive right to do or authorize specific acts like reproducing the work, issuing copies, performing it publicly, adapting it, translating it, and many more. But these rights depend on what kind of work it is. So there's separate exclusive rights for literary, dramatic, and musical works, artistic works, separate for cinematograph films, and another set for sound recordings. For example, in literary works like books, you can reproduce the work, you can publicly communicate the book, while for films, it's a different set of rights, which includes making copies or selling them. These may overlap, these may not overlap. And these rights essentially help protect the creator's control over the use and commercialization of their original work. So that's all for today. I hope you had an understanding of what copyrights are and a basic and overview of the copyright regime in India. We will be delving into copyrights further in upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you there.